Why are so many of the world's most successful entrepreneurs not top students? It's a question that's been asked for decades, and the answer might just blow your mind. You'd think being the smartest kid in the class would be the ultimate ticket to success, right? But the real world doesn't always reward the best test takers. In fact, it's the ones who think outside the box, the ones who take risks and challenge the status quo, who end up changing the game. Think about people like Steve Jobs, who dropped out of college, or Bill Gates, who left Harvard to start Microsoft. These aren't outliers. They're part of a bigger trend that's been playing out for years. It's not about being bad at school, it's about being different. And that difference often doesn't show up on a transcript. We assume that academic success equals real-world success. It's a belief that's been drilled into us since childhood. Good grades equals smart, smart equals successful. But what if that equation is just plain wrong? Schools are built around memorization, tests, and following rules, not innovation, creativity, or risk-taking. And the real world? It's messy, unpredictable, and full of opportunities that aren't found in textbooks. The best students are often the ones who follow the path laid out for them, not the ones who blaze their own trail. That's not to say school isn't valuable, it is, but it's not the only measure of potential. The problem is that society keeps reinforcing the myth that if you're not at the top of your class, you're not going to make it in life. In reality, only about 15% of Fortune 500 CEOs graduated in the top 10% of their class. That's a staggering number when you think about how much weight we give to grades. These CEOs didn't get where they are by acing exams, they got there by building companies, taking risks, and failing a lot. They didn't follow the traditional path, they carved their own. And yet, they're the ones leading the most successful companies in the world. So why does this keep happening? It's not just about talent. It's about the kind of thinking that schools often don't reward. But this is not a coincidence, it's a pattern rooted in human psychology and education systems. Let's talk about why so many of the world's most successful entrepreneurs didn't make it to the top of their class. The truth is, the education system is built on a foundation that rewards conformity, not creativity. Think about it. From kindergarten to college, students are constantly told to follow rules, stick to the right answers, and avoid mistakes. That's not a bad thing in itself, but when it becomes the only way to succeed, it starts to stifle the kind of thinking that leads to real innovation. Schools don't just teach subjects, they teach a mindset that values predictability over possibility. And that mindset can be a real problem for people who want to break the mold. Real-world success often comes from people who think differently, but if the system is designed to discourage that, it's no wonder so many top entrepreneurs were average students. If you've ever been in a classroom where the teacher only praised the kids who got the right answers, you might have noticed something. The ones who asked what if, or why not, were often the ones who got ignored or even scolded. That's not just a classroom issue, it's a pattern that follows people into adulthood. When kids are taught to be obedient and avoid risk, they're less likely to take chances later in life. That's why so many entrepreneurs, who are by nature risk-takers, didn't shine in school. They were told to follow the rules, not to question them. And when they did question them, they were often met with disapproval. Over time, that kind of feedback can create a fear of failure, which is one of the biggest obstacles to innovation. The system is designed to keep people safe, but sometimes safety is the enemy of success. Schools and societies value measurable outcomes like grades, test scores, and standardized metrics. That's how we track progress, right? But here's the catch, innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's messy, unpredictable, and often starts with a lot of failure. The people who change the world aren't the ones who always got the right answers, they're the ones who were willing to be wrong, to try things that didn't work, and to keep going anyway. The problem is, our education system doesn't reward that kind of thinking. It rewards people who play it safe, who stick to the script, and who don't disrupt the status quo. That's not just a flaw in the system, it's a bias that's been baked into the way we teach, evaluate, and even celebrate success. This is not just a psychological issue, it's a mechanism that plays out in the real world, shaping how people behave. Let's break it down. The mechanism starts in childhood, where students are evaluated on compliance, not curiosity. Schools reward kids who follow the rules, sit quietly, and memorize facts without questioning. If a kid asks why too much, they might get labeled as disruptive or too much. It's not that these kids aren't smart, they're often the ones who think differently, who see patterns others don't. But in a system that values conformity over creativity, that kind of thinking is seen as a problem. In fact, studies show that kids who are more curious and imaginative often score lower on traditional academic metrics, just because they're not following the script. It's a setup that favors the status quo, not the future. As students grow, the pattern becomes clearer. Those who thrive in structured environments are promoted, while those who question or innovate are often seen as difficult or unruly. Teachers and parents tend to praise kids who do what they're told, not those who challenge the system. This creates a hierarchy where compliance is the path to success, and creativity is the path to being misunderstood. Real-world examples back this up. Steve Jobs was famously kicked out of college, and Bill Gates left Harvard to start Microsoft. They weren't bad students, they were just too focused on building things, not just passing tests. Schools don't teach how to take risks or fail fast, which are core skills for entrepreneurs. It's like training someone to be a lawyer but not teaching them how to start a business. It's just not in the curriculum. This creates a long-term bias against risk-taking, which is essential for entrepreneurship, and it's often ignored by educational institutions and parents alike. The damage isn't just in the classroom, it follows people into their careers, where they're hesitant to take chances or challenge the norm. Many entrepreneurs I've spoken to say they felt out of place in school, like they didn't fit the mold. But instead of adapting the system to help them, the system adapted them to fit the mold, and that's a huge loss for innovation. When schools don't value curiosity, they're not just shaping students, they're shaping the future. But even if people recognize this, they often fall into a trap, one that prevents them from truly breaking free. You've probably heard people say, just take a few courses, read some books, and boom, you're an entrepreneur. It sounds simple, right? And honestly, who wouldn't want a shortcut to success? But here's the thing, most of these people are just scratching the surface. They think learning a few strategies or watching a TED Talk is going to transform them. The problem is, they're not actually addressing the real issues that hold people back. It's like trying to fix a leaky boat by painting it blue. Looks better, but it still sinks. Real change doesn't come from surface-level fixes. It comes from understanding the deeper, more complex stuff that's been holding people back for years. And that's not something you can pick up in a weekend workshop. The reason these quick fixes don't work is because they ignore the core of the problem. Think about it, most people who struggle with entrepreneurship were shaped by a system that values conformity, not creativity. School teaches you to follow rules, not break them. It rewards those who play it safe, not those who take risks. So when someone tries to fix things by just learning a new skill or reading a book, they're not actually changing the mindset that was formed in school. They're just adding another layer on top of an old system. It's like trying to fix a broken engine by changing the color of its paint. It looks different, but it still doesn't work. That's why so many people end up stuck, even after they've done all the right things. Now that we understand the trap, it's time to move toward a new, actionable reality. The real solution isn't about picking up new skills or attending a class, it's about reprogramming the way you think. It's about unlearning the habits that school taught you and replacing them with the kind of thinking that actually leads to innovation. This isn't easy, but it's necessary. Because if you're still trying to fix things from the outside, you're never going to get to the root of the problem. You have to go deep, into the mindset. And start changing the way you see the world. That's where the real transformation begins. We've seen how the education system pushes for conformity, rewards memorization, and punishes risk, and how that clashes with the kind of thinking that builds startups, disrupts industries, and creates value. It's not that smart kids can't be entrepreneurs, but the system doesn't train them to think outside the box. And when they try to break free, they often hit a wall because society still values test scores over real-world smarts. That's why so many of the biggest innovators, like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or even Mark Zuckerberg, didn't finish school or weren't top of their class. It's not a failure. It's just a mismatch between what schools teach and what the real world needs. And the trap. People try to fix it by going back to school, getting certifications, or chasing titles, but that doesn't change the mindset that's needed to actually innovate and take risks. So, what's the real solution? It's not about fixing the system, it's about fixing the way we think about success. The key shift is to embrace uncertainty, treat failure as a learning tool, and value curiosity over compliance. Think about the most successful people you know. They didn't get there by following the rules, they broke them. They failed a lot, but they kept going because they saw failure as part of the process, not the end of it. This mindset is what lets people pivot, adapt, and create when the world doesn't make sense. It's not about being reckless, it's about being resilient, flexible, and open to change. And it's not just for entrepreneurs, it's for anyone who wants to live a life that's driven by passion, not permission. So, if you're stuck in a system that rewards compliance, it's time to ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped looking for permission and started looking for opportunity? This mindset shift doesn't just help entrepreneurs, it helps everyone live more authentically. It's about choosing what matters to you, not what society says you should do. And it's not a quick fix, it's a long-term shift in how you see the world and your place in it. So, tell us in the comments, what was your biggest non-academic success?